Hi everybody, I'm going to do some watercolor and gouache demos. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rehydrate some watercolor. So I have Phthalo Blue watercolor right there and I'm rehydrating it. And it's a saturated color as you can see. And then I have some Ivory Black. I'm going to mix that in there. And now this is going to become my dirty watercolor brush. And my brush is still wet, and I'm going to take some burnt sienna. And I'm going to mix, mix that together. So that's Phthalo Blue, burnt sienna, and Mars Black. And what I'm going to do is, on my cow, I'm going to look at it and I'm going to place, even though there's things I like about it, the darkest dark, because I really want that contrast, and I want that richness. Actually, so like we've talked about before, it's planar application. Linear drawing with my brush. And take this burnt sienna and phthalo blue. I'm going to go in here with that color. And then I notice that color is also over here, so wherever I see it, I'll apply that color. Needs to be much darker. Yeah, that's good. So you see I'm using the side of my brush. That looks good. Then I also noticed there's this darker shadow in here. Oops. Okay. Plainer. Plainer. Then I also notice that's happening somewhat in there. It's wet into wet because I already put wet material on there. Again, planer, planer, planer. Let's see if you can see. That's okay. I'm not worried about that. Here's that. That. Okay. And any other, well, I'm going to clean that off. Tip of brush that I'm always talking about. Okay. So my next thing is, I showed you how to draw with my brush, but what I'm going to do is I want to do some dry brush with watercolor, and then I'll do gouache. So this is watercolor here. That off again. This is watercolor. And I like that color for the most part. And we have a base coat already. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper towel, and I have a filbert, so I'm going to tap off some of that pigment. Okay, I need to tap it off a little more. Oop, much more. Much more. What we want to do is dry brush. So you want to tap your brush and remove the excess dry. It's not enough. Okay. Try it off a bit more. We'll remove excess pigment. See, it's more dry. And see how I can draw with it? Now, you don't want to just, this might be okay, but you know, if you want more description like Andrew Wyeth, it's going to take more layering and more time and finer brushes. Need a base coat in there, so I probably shouldn't touch that one. Now see, that's wet media on dry paper there. So I'm gonna let that dry and then I can go on top of it more, and I'm gonna go in here with a base coat. Ooh, don't want that red to get on. So I'm traveling. We have multiple watercolor beads. So I'm gonna do some gouache dry brush and then I'll come back to the watercolor again. So this is gray gouache, and I also have a white gouache too. So again, gouache, you can do it both. You could do both ways. So we could do thin it out so it's like watercolor, right? And do it that way. So this is semi-opaque. This is in half and half consistency. It's thin and it's a saturated color. So what I can do is knock some of that excess off. And I can go in here, apply it a little, remove some more. There, it's more dry, and I can apply it like dry brush. So right now I'm just doing horizontal lines with my filbert, but you don't have to do that. You can go each direction. It's about removing the excess pigment and applying it dryly. So this is one way with gouache, thinning it out like watercolor, removing the excess pigment. We already have a base coat established, and look, go like that, and you can develop it further. Okay, the other way I'm going to show is where you use it thickly without hardly any water. You just want a tiny bit of water. Just the tip again, like I talk about. Okay, there it's thick, and my brush is loaded. I want to see that thick blob. Loaded my brush, but we want to remove some of the excess pigment. So again, you dab to remove. See? That's another way of doing dry brush with gouache. Yeah, you can see that. So I'm going to just do one here. And you can build it up. So there. It's another way of doing it. Now I think I'm going to do some wet into wet and or wet medium on dry paper in there. And then I'm going to go back in with some more dry brush. I can always cut into that drawing. Can always cut back into it, which is what I'm going to do. Okay. So I'm going to let this dry and I'm going to go back into that. Oop, no. It's another way to do dry brush. My brush isn't loaded there. I'm going to go back into here more, but maybe what I should do is, so we have some gouache in here. It's thinned out like watercolor, and I'm going to put in some of this smalt blue gouache. And I'm going to thin it out like watercolor too, and I'm going to mix those two together. I might end up changing the sky, but let's try it. Ooh, I like that. Now see, this is like half and half. This isn't like watercolor here, but I like it. See, that's a pretty application. Okay. I might go into different parts of the sky, but maybe go right here into the snow too. So take some of that color, more white, a little bit of that blue with the gouache. I need more white, but I'm just going to block this in. I kind of like that little break there. You know, you can cut into it and stuff, which I'd like to do. But I think this is an okay amount of information showing you different like ways of approaching gouache and watercolor. So I'm going to stop it right here.